Danny is with B9Creations, and they have 3D printing. And here is a little bit about Danny. She's a first-time mom, long-time insomniac. Danny Mason has a passion for the new. It's what has led her to study and teach abroad before tackling a translation challenge to a different sort. Working in marketing and communications at a science and engineering school, South Dakota Mines. She co-owns a political marketing and communications consultancy with her husband, Jordan, and called Launch Collective. She spends her free time running startup weekends. Now as a marketing director at B9Creations, she's found the perfect fit, applying her passion to an emerging industry in a growing company, all in the beautiful Black Hills. And with that, I give you Danny Mason.
Thank you. So we are B9Creations, a professional provider of 3D printing solutions poised to disrupt a multi-trillion-dollar manufacturing industry. We got our start, like all great startups do, in a garage. Our founder, Mike Joyce, spent 10 years as a B-1 bomber pilot before enjoying a career in the financial software industry, then turning his attention to a new passion. Initially wanting to 3D print an airplane, he soon discovered the technology wasn't there, but an untapped market need was. There were cheap, low-end 3D printers for hobbyists and expensive $100,000 3D printers at the enterprise level. But there was no 3D printer for small to mid-sized businesses at a price they could afford. So he switched his attention from producing a 3D printed part to producing 3D printers. After a Kickstarter campaign raised about $500,000, he launched the first generation 3D printer on the market to worldwide acclaim. And business began growing, to the point his wife turned to him and said, "Mike, you don't have to leave, but you can't stay here." So in 2014, we moved to the business incubator at South Dakota Mines. And just 3 years later, launched our latest generation 3D printer called the B9 Core Series. Speeds 4 times faster than industry average. With resolution as fine as a third the thickness of a human hair, it was a resounding success. And it was truly a plug-and-play solution. You didn't have to be a tech expert to run the printer, you just had to push a button. So businesses responded en masse. The company grew from 4 employees to 32 employees with 5 interns. Last year alone, we between doubled and tripled our revenue, shipping thousands of printers to 66 countries worldwide, earning us a spot as FedEx's largest shipper West River, and just last week, SBA Exporter of the Year award out of a 5-state region. So all companies know their what. Ours, B9Creations, is a provider of professional 3D printing solutions, allowing customers to create their parts layer by layer from liquid plastic. Successful companies know their how, their market differentiator or value proposition. B9Creations is the industry leader in speed, simplicity, and value. But the revolutionary ones, they know their why. They don't sell products, they start movements. Apple doesn't make computers, it disrupts the status quo. Martin Luther King had a dream, not a 12-step plan. Our why is written in our DNA. Whether you're talking about our impact in jewelry or dentistry, automotive and manufacturing, or prototyping in aerospace, our mission runs much deeper than the machines we make. We don't ship printers. We help companies create jobs. We help make healthcare more affordable. We empower universities to stop counterfeiting and create better systems to deliver life-saving drugs. Our why is woven through everything we touch. Every support call, every trade show, every quality check on the manufacturing floor, in every country, in every business, every time. Because all those little moments add up to a monumental impact on the customers we serve. See, companies don't change the world. People do. That's why our most important stories come from customers like you. We help people like Muhammad, whose dad had a heart attack right before Christmas, leaving both wondering if their jewelry shop would even make it to the new year. With our 3D printer, he was able to keep his family business running while his dad recovered, and in his own words, save Christmas. We help people like Frank, With the rise of globalization, Frank, a wholesale jeweler, watched one by one as his friends' businesses got shipped overseas. Through our 3D printers, his productivity rose and his prices stayed competitive, keeping his business and American jobs thriving on U.S. shores. We help universities, like South Dakota Mines, stop counterfeiting of currency and black market art. And we help countless others, as our partnership with Mitsui Chemicals and Colzer has the power to make healthcare more accessible than ever before, giving patients a better experience at an affordable price. And though our reach is global, our heart is local. That's why we love sharing customer stories from right here in the Black Hills. We enable ProSmiles Dental Studios to offer patients 3D printed dentures and dentist surgical guides. Michael Prue owns a custom motorcycle and car shop, restoring family treasures and customizing bikes. One of his biggest markets is customizing Harleys during the rally. So, with our printer, he 3D printed handlebar clamps so that when a customer rides up to the Harley shop during the rally, he can adjust their handlebars to be a perfect customized fit right on the spot, meaning his customers walk away with his product the same day they buy it and show it at one of the biggest events in the Black Hills. Negebauers is a historic family-owned and operated jeweler located downtown. Now, business was booming, but Mike, the jewelry designer, was always 3 days behind, trying to create custom rings by milling them with a machine that just didn't do the intricate details justice. So he bought our printer. Now, he's not only getting the detail he wants, but with a whole build table of rings printing in 45 minutes, not 24 hours or more, he's able to spend his time where it matters most, with his customers. And Dan Smith, he owns Magnum Enterprises. They sell rubber band guns globally. When the injection molding company lost his $10,000 mold to make the triggers in his gun, he turned to B9Creations. Scanning the triggers with our 3D scanner, we reverse engineered the part, 3D printing iterations of the parts to his specifications before he got a new mold made. The alternative, dropping $10,000 each time he wanted to tweak that mold. We're also working with Game Fish and Parks to 3D print expandable collars for bobcat kittens to track wildlife populations. Right now, chips are surgically implanted, and they can migrate in the body, causing illness and sometimes even potentially death. By placing the chip in an expandable 3D collar, we not only hope to give Game Fish and Parks the data they need, but reduce the risk to wildlife, along with the potential to track far more species in the Black Hills. Questions? I'm going to pull up a video so you can see the printer in action while you guys think of how you're going to stump me next.
So who's brave enough for the first question?
Hello, Danny.
Hello.
Could you walk me through the buyer's journey, per se?
Yeah.
Can you walk me through being the prospective company that's looking to buy a 3D printer and walk me through visiting your website to actually purchasing the piece of equipment?
Absolutely.
And while Danny answers this question, there are pieces on the sides of the tables. Please take them and pass them around so you can take a look at some of the products that they do.
That's a great question, Malik. And as people tease our CEO about, when you ask for the time, he explains how the watch works. So you're going to have to bear with me because I want to kind of lay the groundwork for the 3 different customers we have, and then I'll answer your question more in depth. So we really have a 3-part business model. We have direct customers, which are the ones you're referring to, other businesses around the world. We also have a global dealer network, meaning they're reselling our products to their own customers. And the third leg of the stool are strategic partners or original equipment manufacturers. So we're actually acting as an innovation engine for companies that are too slow to innovate themselves. What that looks like is us developing a 3D printer for a large dental company, or developing materials for that large dental company, where we're selling hundreds of those printers rather than just one to an end consumer. So the buyer journey looks very different for the 3 legs of that stool. For a direct customer, when they come to our website, kind of the first action we would like them to take is to request a sample, similar to the ones you guys are all looking at here. That's really a proof of concept, right? Until you're holding it in your hands, you don't know the capability of a 3D printer, it's a new technology. What's the learning curve look like? This is a tangible way to see what we can produce. You can request standard samples, or we will custom print their files. The next piece of that sales journey comes through a qualification process where we truly have to ask questions to understand how their business works today. How are you producing these parts? How many are you doing a month? How much is that costing you in time and dollars? So that we can get to the root of their pain point and see where our technology can fit in their process to either replace traditional costly processes or just add on to it to grow their business. So we send out the sample, we have those qualification questions, so we're building a business case alongside a technology platform to address their needs. Then once they place the order, we ship the printer, and one of our other differentiators is we offer free lifetime tech support. A lot of other people have service contracts, free software you can download at any time, and we also do free factory startup training, meaning we take the time with every single customer, sometimes a couple hours, to walk them through not only how to use their 3D printer, how to print their own parts, and how this will fit in their overall workflow of their business. So to give you an example, with a dental company, there's dentures over here on this desk. The historic way of making those dentures, if you went into the dentist, is they take a hockey puck of like $300 material and they mill it over, 4 or 5 hours in order to get just your first try in denture to see if you have a good fit. And then they have to do that again if you make any tweaks. We can print biocompatible 3D dentures for, $3, maybe over the course of an hour and a half. So when you think about an impact on a business from $300 to $3, from 5 hours each iteration to maybe an hour and a half, and then you think about the impact on their customers, truly custom fit, if you scan their mouth, dentures that you can get the same day. 3D printing is what makes same-day dentistry possible. So when you're thinking about a product, you're more thinking about a solution for a business need, not just a 3D printer. Did that answer enough of your question? Do you have more? You want to shout it out?
Well, yeah, I can. What I'm talking about is when a visitor visits your website, look over the website content, and makes a final decision on whether or not to purchase the equipment or go somewhere else. That's the type of journey that I'm talking about, rather than just the great product that you're selling. Is how do a business get from point A, go visiting the website, to point B, buying the product and becoming the customer.
Okay. So on the website itself, they might navigate through the products. They might navigate through case studies showing how other customers that look like them are using our product, so they can start to see application before they even talk to us. And then they might do things like, we're working on a total cost of comparison, so they can plug in their actual data, what they're producing and what it costs, and have comparative data analysis to see, is this printer going to save me money over another 3D printer or over the process I'm using today? That can all happen on the website. But where the magic happens is we get them to request a sample, to call us, so we now have a business conversation where we're talking about their business, their needs, their cost analysis, where they want to grow, in order to make that final sale. So they can navigate through the products on the website, they can navigate through case studies of other customers, they can even navigate through what is this going to save me in terms of time and money compared to your other competitors and what I'm doing today. All to get them to request that sample and call us so we can start to do basically a 15-minute business consultation is how I would best describe it, to try to get them to pull the trigger on a printer. Does that better answer your question? Okay, cool.
Next question.
Okay, so you after class.
Are there different densities or types of plastic that you can make with the printers, or are they all fairly the same material type? I don't understand exactly how the chemical works.
Yep. So the materials we use, they're all called photopolymer resins. And all that means is it's a fancy way of saying liquid plastic that cures in UV light. So that's what all of these are. Now each of the materials has different properties depending upon the application. So the emerald, those green and yellow ones, those are castable, meaning that I can put them directly in metal and replacing a process that jewelers use or anyone that casts a product in metal would use. It'll create a mold essentially, and then it'll burn out that resin and fill it with metal. So that's what those do. So they have to be fine-tuned for fine resolution, for instance. When you see the gray and black materials, those are our other two materials. Those are more for the engineering and prototyping world. Black is known for high detail. It's a little bit higher temperature, So you can do things like vulcanized mold making with it, which has applications in tooling, also in jewelry. That gray is designed for dimensional accuracy and speed. So when you think about applications that use snap fit, where they need it to be strong, like an ABS plastic, that's what they would use that for. And it's super, super fast. So if I was to print rings in that emerald, it might take 45 minutes. I could do it in gray in 12 minutes. So in jewelry, they use it as design verification. Like you and your fiance or wife come in and she can't decide between 3 different rings. I print them on the spot, you try them on, you pick yours, and I can make a sale that day. Whereas in a prototyping environment, it may be just so fast that I can now use that to do prototyping versus whatever I'm doing, or even for end-use parts, because it has high strength. Other 3D printers print all kinds of things. So some do metal, right? Some do other types of materials. We do liquid plastic that cures in UV light. Does that answer?
Yeah.
Cool. Oh, look at that. Do it your sizzle well. This might be better than my presentation. Just let that roll.
Any other questions?
I visited a plastics manufacturer in Osceola, Indiana, one time, and it felt like a throwback to the 1950s or something. I just wondered, do you know how big of a dent you're making in their market share? They make little plastic pieces for, you know, toys and packaging and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. So I guess what might be helpful context is it's hard to tell the scale of this printer from our video. The build envelope is about 3 inches by 2 inches by 5 inches. So what that means is rather than making a dent overall in the plastic market, we have a very niche slice of it that we're competitive in. So things like those toys, perfect example. We have a ton of model makers. So whether it's like contracting out with Paramount or Pixar or architectural firms or furniture companies, that's kind of the market we're making a big dent in terms of the plastics industry. Caps and closures, same thing. I will say that, just being totally transparent with you all, where we made our name was jewelry and dentistry. We had materials that were a good fit, the build table's the right size. Right now, we are in the thick of it, trying to do new market entry exactly into the markets you're talking about. Prototyping and manufacturing. Now that crosses a wide variety of things. It is things like plastics, caps, and closures. It's things like aerospace. It's things like automotive. But all where we can do high detail, high accuracy, small parts that no other printer can produce. So we are in the throes of early stages, and I would love to come back here in a year and be able to give you a percentage of how much market share that we have in that industry. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey,
Hey, Fred.
I'm just wondering what it's like to be in a startup, to work for a startup like that. I heard the CEO of your company talking on public radio, I think
Oh,
it was
yeah.
the other day.
Yep.
And you said there used to be 4 people,
Yep.
and now how many? I think it's
32.
grown quite a bit, so I'm wondering. And I'm also wondering if we can watch the video that you were going to show
Yeah.
us.
The time lapse.
Yeah. Oh, was that what we watched?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, so I joined the company about end of August, so 8 months ago. So it's definitely moved from early stage startup, where we had like a 3,000 square foot facility and 4 chairs in the middle of that room, because there were 4 employees. So our founder first recruited his family to build these things and ship them overseas from his house. So when it snowed, because he lived in Deadwood, he would have to throw the printers on his little 4-wheeler and haul down to FedEx because they couldn't get up the driveway. Like, that is blood, sweat, and tears startup. So then when he moved to the incubator, his second hire, outside of his son, so his third hire, was a mines grad who did operations, global supply chain. His fourth was our current CEO, who at that time was VP of sales. So, it's funny when you're in a startup mode and you don't quite know where the market's going and you don't quite know who your customers are, and you're from Rapid City and you don't have a massive budget, you start to become really clear around what's the one thing I can do better than anyone else. And the one thing we do better than anyone else is out-listen the competition because we cannot outspin them and we cannot outmarket them. So I'll just give one example on what that looks like. In a startup mode, to make a decision that seems painful but aligns with what you think your competitive advantage is. When we launched our first generation 3D printer, we're trying to ship these things out the door. We're getting a lot of feedback. You have to be super technical to run it. It's not working. Most people, when we launched that first one, it was $5,000. Most people were going cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, trying to get one in every household, right? This is where 3D printing is going. What we did, and I wasn't there at the time, so I can't take credit, but what these people did at the company that was 4, 8, 15 people, is they said, tell me what you want in a 3D printer. And they heard, I don't want to have to know anything to run it. I want to push a button. If we do that, would you pay double what you're paying now? Yes. So when everyone else was dropping prices, we doubled the price of our flagship product on a bet that we had listened well enough to a customer as a startup to deliver something that they wanted, and it worked. So I think sometimes when you think about startup, is there crying in the bathroom? Maybe just in my office. But there's definitely has to be an intentionality around who you're trying to serve so that when you're now 32 employees, you still think that same way. And that's why when I talked about those 3 lines of business, direct, channel, and partner, we're not gonna lose direct, because it's exactly that. It's maintaining a startup mentality, being hungry, hustling, and listening more than anyone else. So, I don't know, having, obviously, my husband and I have a startup, so it's the same thing, right? What do I do better than anyone else? And how can I rock the world from right here in Rapid City, which is probably the second passion of that company. They could be located anywhere. They're not. They're located here. That was a roundabout way that answered 30% of your question. So next.
Oh, sorry, I was gonna go to Malik, but that's
You wanna
okay.
move on?
It's okay, either way.
Pass it back.
So you said a little bit about where you're at as a company now.
Yeah.
What challenges are you facing, or what can you share with us about some of the challenges that you're
Yeah.
right in the middle of now?
Absolutely. Thanks. So one of the big challenges speaks to Leah's point, and that's, okay, we've established our presence here, but we gotta grow and innovate if we're gonna be around 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So that's how do we take what we know we're good at in this market and translate that so it's a repeatable process in all these other markets. And oh, by the way, there's an entirely new vernacular in each one of those. So when you're a 32-person company, you can't be an expert in aerospace, in automotive, in prototyping, in the plastics industry, and jewelry. You can't. So part of the challenge is, how do we still outlisten the competition to our customers? How do we define value like they define value in their own words? And then how do we surround ourselves, whether it's through dealers or partners or consultants, so that we can be the technology expert and someone else can be the industry expert? Because that's the only way we can scale. I'd say the second challenge is not really a challenge, just maybe some insight into what the future looks like. So 3D printing is probably going to go the way of 2D printing. Meaning when you go buy your HP printer, you don't go to your HP startup, right? You go to Best Buy or you go to Amazon. When you think about that model, Best Buy is like a dealer network. A&B Business Solutions is like a dealer network. Amazon is like a strategic partner. So when we start to grow our business over the next 2, 5, 10, 15 years, if we're going to be around, we have to think that way. We have to identify those dealers, identify those partners, so we're still relevant when everyone can buy a 3D printer online.
All right, now let's touch upon the marketing aspects.
Okay.
What are your marketing strategies in regards to getting customers to go to the website and keep customers
Yep.
through your service and support?
Yep. So right now, the biggest converter we have of leads to sales are trade shows. We're able to spend face-to-face time with customers and form a relationship. So one pillar of that marketing strategy is advertising around trade shows, and not just through digital ads and email with customers letting them know we're going to be there and following up, but things like geofencing, right? The building where the trade show is in, so that you can shoot ads to them when they leave, even if you didn't get a chance to talk to them. Because when people come to a trade show, typically the decision maker, typically ready to make a purchase. So that's one pillar. A lot of that other pillar that we're doing is around these stories. So when we're trying to target a new market, it's not just a list of feature and benefits, it's trying to develop content, whether it's case studies or content offers, so they can see how just the technology works in their business before they even start to consider, is this the right technology for me? 3D printing is confusing. There's a lot of printers, there's a lot of words, there's a lot of specs, and it's hard to even know what it all means. So educational content, customer case studies, and content around how this works for you is kind of a big part of that marketing strategy. Then because we have 99% inbound leads, meaning they're emailing us, they're calling us, they're submitting forms, we do nurturing campaigns so that we don't have to have our one full-time salesperson fielding 100 inquiries a month. We put them in an automated email marketing campaign that does some of that qualifying for us. So those questions I was telling you about that would be ideal over the phone, how many models are you producing a month, what does your process look like? We're doing that in forms and emails so that we're pre-qualifying customers so that by the time they spit out near the bottom of the funnel, marketing has done its job and our salesperson is talking to the most qualified leads. So those are just a couple examples of our marketing strategies.
I have a question for you. So how many printers do you have? And you said that you had a first series. What
Yep.
series are you on now?
Yep.
And can you customize the printer for exactly what the customer needs?
Yep. Try to remember all those questions. Sorry. Memory's like a trap rusted shut kind of thing. Okay, so our first generation printer had when I say that, it's like an oversimplification. It had iterations between there, but it was a quantum leap to our latest generation printer. So really, we had like a 1.0 and a 1.1 and a 1.2, but those were all first generation, as I'm calling them. So we're technically on our second quantum leap of a printer that's above and beyond the first one. See, I already forgot the second question.
Can you customize
Oh,
it to
customize.
what your
Yep.
customers need?
So the size of that build envelope I was telling you about, that doesn't change in our new printer. You have a little more flexibility in our first generation for that customization. But what you can tweak is not only with the materials we offer, but we have a platform where you can use third-party materials. So a lot of companies, universities, whatever, they want to use a material we don't currently offer. They can tweak in the software the settings to allow that to happen. And we're rolling out new products all the time that's aimed to be customization. The other part of that is not just thinking about the printer itself, but we try to offer a solution. So when I talked about Magnum Enterprises, we 3D scanned a part, 3D printed the iterations. Then the next part of that is how do you automate post-processing, cleaning, and that curing in UV light. And then on this end, it's how do you develop software offerings so it auto-orientates the model, auto-supports the model, or does things like through machine learning recognizes, oh, this looks a lot like a denture. So I don't have to do anything in the software. It can recognize it, spit it out to the printer, right, from your scan, clean it, cure it, send it off. So customization is going to come more largely in the workflow process, not the printer itself.
And what is the cost of an average printer?
Yep, so our latest printer, the new generation, that's just under $10,000. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How does someone like yourself who's been in other businesses take the leap to go and work for a startup, maybe leaving a little more secure employment to take a big leap to have the passion that they have to support it?
That's a really good question, and I'll add even more color to that. My husband is self-employed. I have a 3-year-old. He has no health benefits. He says he has retirement, but we'll see what that looks like in 30 years. And he works, 16-hour days sometimes. So my employment, my secure employment, wasn't just, oh, this is nice, I have a steady paycheck. It was, oh, this is nice, I can provide for my family should this other thing not work. And I'll tell you what. One, some of it's wiring, right? Do I like new? Do I like innovative? There's nothing wrong with liking structure, but if you wake up every morning and you're trying to push things forward and you feel like you're just hitting the bureaucratic wall, which is what I felt a lot at those other places, it was more important to me with the time I have here. I know I'm gonna be a hard worker. I know I'm gonna be a hustler, and I know I'm gonna land on my feet because I've seen my husband do it again and again and again with his business. A lot of you own your own businesses. You said it's like having a baby, moving, starting a new job. Yeah, it is. You're doing fine, right? And if you didn't, you would still be okay. So sometimes I think the fear of the unknown is a false fear, because all of you, I think, are smart enough and talented enough that you're going to find your way no matter what. So part of it's wiring to be new. Part of it is realizing what's the worst thing that happens. Could I overcome that? Yeah, you probably could. And then the third part of that is, do I really believe in what this company is doing? Do I really believe in the technology? Have they protected, that intellectual property? And do I believe that I'm surrounded by people that feel like every decision they make affects the 30 families they're feeding and take that responsibility seriously? Yeah, I do. So is it a startup? Yeah, but frankly, sometimes people in startups are the hardest workers I know, and they have the most to lose, so they're not going to lose it. I've been at bigger companies where you have new initiatives and you spend a ton of money and it goes nowhere. It's no big deal. You can't do that at a startup. So you're thoughtful in your decision-making process. You try to be responsive, not reactive. And everyone works way more than, 8 to 5. So it's scary, but I kind of just got to the point where I'm like, is it worth being unhappy at home because I'm secure at work? Or is it worth showing my daughter, showing my husband, right, that this is a model when times get tough, it's going to be okay? So that's not a great answer. It's a leap of faith, but you know what? It hasn't let me down yet, and I've made shifts throughout my career, and they've been okay, and each time it's been actually more awesome than the last. I think that might be a great question. I don't know, can I question the audience? Sure. You do whatever you want. You got 15 minutes. I would love to hear from you guys that own a business in the room, your answer to that question, because I think that's something I think that everyone would benefit from hearing. Do I have to popcorn it? Do you have a question, or are you going to share?
Last question.
Oh.
Analytics and matrix.
Okay.
All right, when customers go to your website, how do you know that they're going to your website? How do you know people are bouncing off your website?
Mm-hmm.
And what are you doing based upon your information using to correct that error? Either it's in the content, either it's in the information, or even when it's based on button clicks to monitor or read those metrics when you process that report.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
if you can enlighten me on that, I would appreciate it.
Before we had the system I'll tell you about, Google Analytics is what we used. So we could see bounce rate, we could see drop off, we could see customer journey through the website, right? Are they going where we'd like them to go, or is it not intuitive enough for them to follow the journey we think is going to best benefit them and us? Now, what we did is we actually, when I first joined, we didn't have a full-time salesperson, so I oversaw marketing and sales, which was a hot mess express. But through that experience, I learned we needed a CRM, a customer relationship management tool.
HubSpot,
So,
CRM.
exactly. So we dipped our toe in the water with HubSpot through that, and then we eventually ended up getting their marketing suite. So now not only can I see their journey through the website and bounce rates and button clicks and all of that, but I can see how many of those are converting to leads and how many of those leads are converting to sales, which is much more imperative in a startup, that you don't think about marketing just as traffic or bounce rate. You think about it as a conversion tactic and a whole funnel, because you don't, frankly, have the bandwidth or cash flow to not be intentional about impact on the bottom line. So then when we're tweaking that, a lot of it is, well, if there's a bounce rate, it's figuring out, is it because they got what they needed? Or is it because the content wasn't engaging enough for them to stay? So then you start looking, well, the bounce rate's high, but did they come back? Are they a repeat visitor? What types of things are they doing? And then tweaking the content to fit that. A lot of it's experimentation and A/B testing. One of the big projects that Nicole, who's also in our marketing department, are going to work on next is customer journey through the website. So not just focusing on optimizing on-page SEO and content, but really thinking holistically through a customer journey on our site, exactly what you were talking about, to make it optimized and customizable to the experience that they have. So if they want to solve these 4 problems, right, whatever those are, having them choose their own adventure so they're delivered content relevant to the exact problem they self-identified.
I see.
Mhm.
Oh, one last question. All
Okay.
right. Shopping cart abandonment.
Yeah.
How do you handle that?
Yeah. That's low-hanging fruit, right? So a really great way is to just do the Amazon model and pop them back with an email, or if you have a text platform, but pop them back with an email that says, hey, you have these 3 items waiting in your cart. Are you still interested in a purchase? and then tying that in so that my salesperson knows to make a call. But the best low-hanging fruit is just if they abandon a cart, shoot them an email, remind them a couple times. Oftentimes that's enough to push them over the edge. With a $10,000 product, it takes a little more human interaction. But you know, with our resin, a $150 product, it might not.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Oh, one last question.
Yeah.
Movies like Lost in Space and the,
Yeah.
and the Cloverfield Paradox.
Have you
Both of them use 3D printing in order to make weapons, tools, what have you.
Yeah.
What do you see 3D printing look like in the future?
Yeah. First of all, fun fact, as if our founder's background wasn't cool enough. In the first, not the new reboot, but the first Lost in Space, he built fully functional 3D robots. And the reason our company is named B9Creations is because of the B9 robot. So that was actually, yeah. So that was actually one of his side hustles, because I guess that's what you do when you're a genius, before he switched over here. So a lot of where we see 3D printing going is exactly what I answered his question is startups aren't going to be around in 15 years. You're going to have a reseller network, and you're going to have partners. The other thing is I think a lot of people thought there'd be a 3D printer in every home. Well, that's not really that relevant, because you can't 3D print a cell phone without a lot of really precious materials that consumers aren't going to have access to. So I really think that B2B is probably where it's going to go. That's why we've designed our strategy around that. And the margins can be a little bit better there, rather than direct to consumer. And the other food for thought is when you look at the 3D printing industry, it's several billions of dollars. When you look at the manufacturing industry, it's several trillions of dollars. So being able to move materials from prototyping, which is how they're used now, to end-use parts, that's going to be where it's going. It's not just replacing this part of your process, but all the way to the end. So that's where I kind of see it going.
And our last question is always, what can we do as a 1 Million Cups community help you to boost your business?
Yeah.
And keep in mind that we are live streaming, as
Yeah.
well as this will also be placed on the 1 Million Cups, where everyone throughout the nation will be able to access your video.
Yeah. So when I say technology company, a lot of people think, oh, you guys must hire a lot of engineers, software engineers, mechanical engineers. But to grow a business, you need talent from every sector: administrative, sales, marketing, HR. So my big ask of this community is not only to tell people what we do, tell people why we do it, but send talent our way. We are trying to hire people. We want to hire people locally. And sometimes it's hard to know where that talent is. So right now we're hiring a manufacturing team lead, for instance. So if you know people that even tangentially you think might be interested or have a talent that we could use, send them our way. That would be my big ask.